July 20th, 2021, I began a journey that would last nearly 3 years. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dillon with a Blankie channel, where it's another beautiful day to talk about a beautiful franchise. Today we're going to discuss the Tales of series, one of my absolute favorite franchises ever. In July of 2021, I started playing Tales of Fantasia on my Twitch, and it snowballed into me spending over 2 years playing every Mothership title. Just real quick, Mothership just means main series. Anything else is considered a spin-off. But it was a hell of an experience. And with all the knowledge of playing those titles, I thought it only fair I put together a list of all the main games, excluding Tempest because that lost its main game status, from worst to best. Now, I'll mainly be using footage and clips from my old streams to talk about these games, and I want to say this list will be slightly subjective, but I'm trying to be as critical on the games and vague on the story as possible to not spoil anything. I would like this to be a definitive list of worst to best, so prepare to be butthurt, Team Destiny fans. As I bring them up, I will also bring up the version I played, because spoiler alert, I only played the versions I figured would be the best, or the ones I could read, like the Vita games for Innocence and Hearts. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this list. Please feel free to tell me how much you hate my takes in the comments. This is the Tales of Worst to Best Mothership Games. Number 17, Tales of Legendia, PS2. Yes, it's no surprise to anyone except the 10 people who liked this game. Tales of Legendia is sloppy at best and an awful slog at worst. Tales of Legendia released in Japan on August 25th, 2005, and in North America on February 7th, 2006. The team behind this game was Project Melfess, and was specifically formed because the Tales studio was busy developing a different Tales game at the time. We'll talk about that one later. From what I could find, this is their only game, and maybe we should be thankful for that. Most games on this list, I can say a few things about them that are great. Legendia, however, has only 2 good things: the art style and the music. The art style was headed by Kazuto Nakazawa, who you may know through his other work, Samurai Champloo, or the Linkin Park Breaking the Habit music video. He directed it. His art style really stands out from the entire series, and the characters look really good. If only their personalities reflected that. The cast has the unfortunate luck of being written with exactly one personality trait per character, so no amount of good art design will fix hating them. Senel, our main character, loves protecting Shirley. Poorly. Shirley gets kidnapped a lot. Jump in! Just jump in! She did it! She fucking did it! She did it! Oh my god, I'm so proud of her. This is a big step for Shirley's character. Oh my god. I can't keep watching this happen. Will is just the most hateable character in any Tales game. And yeah, just about everyone either outright sucks or is super forgettable. The only character anyone seems to care about is Chloe, because she's the only person with a personality and an interesting story. Oh, right, I was talking about good things. The other good thing is the music, composed by Go Shina, a very unfortunate composer, having made music for, well, the worst Tales games, but we'll get back to that. The tracks in this game are so over-the-top and bombastic, such symphonic themes. It's really a beautiful OST, but that's about it for the good. The combat sucks. All right. For a game that came after Symphonia, it's wild they regressed from that 3D battle system back to a 2D type. This system is called the Crossover Linear Motion Battle System. The crossover comes from the fact that the team had some devs that worked on Tekken and Soul Calibur. The idea seemed to be to go back to the old 2D fighting style, but it doesn't really work out here. Spread! For a game designed with other fighting games in mind, it really didn't make combos work well. Oftentimes, you just spam the same moves over and over. You could stun lock most enemies until they hit their iframes, and then they hit you, and you have no way to escape. Most of the battles rely on you hitting the weird time stop mechanic to bully the enemy. it never felt satisfying or fun to pull off a win. And finally, the story. Oh, the story. It's just a constant series of rug pulls that have zero attachment to them. Like, they kept finding ways to prolong the game even though it only had a few dungeons that they later reused since they didn't make enough. Whenever you think a questline should stop, oops, this happened, now you have to keep going. And that's the whole game, every scenario. Even after you beat the game and roll credits, now you have the character quests to do, which take a very long time. And why do I care after the main thread is gone? Answer, I don't care. And that's why I didn't do them. Overall, Legendia is a mess of bad characters, bad combat, bad story, and good music. Which is why it is the worst Tales game. Now if you would, go Sheena, play us into the next one. Number 16, Tales of Zestiria, PC version. Another title placement that should surprise no one except the people who only played this game and swore off every other Tales game. Released in Japan for the PS3 on January 22nd, 2015, and in North America on October 16th, 2015, for PS3, PS4, and Windows. This was made by Bandai Namco Studios, so this was a massive umbrella operation. Bandai Namco absorbed thousands of employees and studios into this one team, including the old Namco Tales Studio division, which was by this time defunct. Zestiria is not a good game. The characters are very bland, not hateable like in Legendia, just very there. Our main character, Saray, is Jesus. He never does wrong, and he never has to do wrong. He's just a very one-dimensional character. We never get any depth with him, which is a huge shame because he has so much potential. And every other character is just more nothing burgers. They all feel like extensions of Saray, with nothing going on for them. And that's reflected a lot in the gameplay, as they are literally extensions of his combat.
Now then, it is time for me to return to my place within you.
Yeah, I am the vessel after all.
Get inside me, Layla! Get inside me, baby! Ah!
What the?
Saray?
What's wrong?
It's because I have entered his body.
While they do have some semblance of personality, they just don't get to do much to shine, making them boring. The art style is our typical new-gen look. From Exilia on, the games lose their individual identities in an environmental way. A lot of the overworld NPCs and dungeons have a lot of samey feel, while the only things that really stand out are mostly set pieces, and speaking of dungeons, by this point, we've almost lost all semblance of dungeon mechanics. Puzzles and exploration, everything feels extremely bare, doing the absolute minimum to make it through dungeons. Now let's talk about the combat. Zestiria uses the fusionic chain linear motion battle system. We basically have a human character with seraphic characters. The human character does physical attacks and the seraph does magic. The main gimmick of the combat is that you can fuse the said seraphs to pull off this super form, dealing heavy damage and spells. The combat itself wasn't awful, it was at least a tiny bit of fun, it just feels very unbalanced a lot of the time. Sometimes you're blasting stuff away in a few hits, or you have an absolute wall in front of you, taking no damage, and when these fights drag on, they are awful. Not to mention, the camera if you try to play multiplayer. Want to play a friend? Fuck you. This camera's dog water. Even in single player, this camera is the stuff Super Mario 64 players have nightmares about. The story of the game is very, very bland. We good guy, this guy very bad guy. We need stop very bad guy because bad emotions. Yeah, that's most JRPGs, but they at least make you care. Zestiria fails to pull any heartstrings or make you feel bad about anything happening. I don't want to end on a bad note for this one, so I saved the music for last. Like I said before, this was the other Goshina composed game, and it's very beautifully scored. Just like Legendia, big, bombastic themes with a beautiful symphony. It's a shame he only composed for the two worst Tales games. It's just generally a bad game. And the cons outweigh the pros, heavily. Zestiria is easily a game you can just skip. Number 15, Tales of Hearts R, PS Vita. Hearts is, different. It was originally made for the DS, but that's only in Japanese. So I only list the Vita version here because, well, I can read it. For all I know, the DS version is way better. Anyway, Hearts R first dropped in Japan March 7th, 2013, 5 years after the original DS game, and in the US November 11th, 2014, made by good old Bandai Namco Studio. And hey, this was their first game as that team. I'm stumped onto the words to use for this game, but it's just generic. Our main cast is either forgettable or outright hateable. The main character, Core, is just your classic hero, not too bad, just very there. Our damsel is Kohaku, who is just a huge nothing burger. For the first half of the game, she loses her emotions, and for the second half of the game when she gets them back, nothing really changes. She's still very bland. Her brother Hisui is just terrible. He's super fucking annoying, and his only trait is being an asshole. Luckily, we're saved by Beryl, a girl aspiring to be a court painter.
Hey, it really does lead to the other side. What's the point of escaping if you're gonna kill me out here?
Enos, a successful entrepreneur, and Gaul, an exclusive character for the Vita version. These three are awesome, and add a lot of depth to an otherwise bland game. We have two other party members, but they're just as forgettable. At least one's a cool robot. It looks like a standard Vita game with a cool kind of cel-shaded approach. The battle system is the aerial chase linear motion battle system, meaning they want you to do air combat. In my playthrough, I just never got a decent feel for this, never being able to stay airborne for very long, but everything knocking enemies into the air. Of course, when fighting bosses, you can't even use the air battle mechanic, making battles take much longer than usual. This is one of those games that when the characters talk, everything they say feels super made up. Zeroms, Spiria, Somatics, whatever. The story is just as bland as our characters. I mean, it's easy enough to use mystics though, I guess. Our music this time is composed by Kazuhiro Nakamura. I can barely find data on this guy as the soundtracks made for the DS version and Vita were very different, and they credit him for the Hearts R soundtrack. Apparently he did this game and worked with a team on the DS version? It's not bad. In fact, some of the tracks are real bangers. The problem is, they're repetitive. The battle theme is the same the whole game, and every fucking town has the same theme. I hate hearing it. So Tales of Hearts R is worse than a bad game. It's a boring one. Number 14, Tales of Destiny DX, PS2. Oh yeah, get ready to be butthurt, because I did not like Tales of Destiny, and yes, I am talking about the director's cut. If we talked about the original, it would be at the bottom of this list, hands down. Destiny DX was released in Japan on January 31st, 2008, and then never anywhere else. I played this game using an English patch created by Lifebottle. They do a lot of good work making these old Japanese titles into English. I highly suggest checking them out. This will be our first mention of Namco Tales Studio as a standalone studio. Namco Tales Studio made the brunt of the Tales games, so it's no surprise they worked on Destiny. Destiny was the second game made in the Tales lineage, so of course it got a remake, and it's boasted to be the best version. I agree, but the game itself suffers from some issues. For one, there are too many characters. The way the game operates is we have these swords. They're called Swordians. They're just people sealed inside of swords, which effectively doubles our cast. Throughout the game, we have so many people talking all the time, it's tough to really stay on someone for long, meaning a lot of the characters miss out on some pivotal moments that you now need to rely on the skits for. Stan, as far as main characters go, is a fun guy. I'm kind of all for his boneheaded nature and willingness to jump in. It makes him truly unpredictable. Okay, now go herd the sheep. Oh no. That's it? That's all that was? Routier is a cool thief. Leon is edgy wah-wah boy. Philia is bae, and well, everyone's a pretty fun character. There isn't truly a weak link here, if I'm honest. The problems arise mostly in storytelling, and it might be a translation thing, so excuse me, but oh my goodness, it is rug pull after rug pull after rug pull, and I get it, it's a JRPG, rug pulls are prevalent, but for fuck's sake, I ended up doing a stream of this game for 9 hours, thinking it ended on 4 separate occasions. Some plot devices come out of left field and make zero sense. Overall, it felt like a total letdown. Yes, the characters were amazing, but they never really went anywhere, and the Swordians talk over the main cast so much that they lose development to them. Our battle system is, oh, would you look at that, aerial linear motion battle system. Just like Hearts R, it relies on aerial combat, which again just doesn't really work for bosses. Also, it's an older game, meaning we fight on just one line instead of a 3-dimensional space. It's a bit whack in the bigger fights since everyone just gets massacred by one spell that can take up 85% of the field. A big up for the game is the style. It looks unique and definitely feels like a Tales game to me. These guys do look stupid as fuck holding their swords out and talking to them though. The dungeons are also more of what I would expect from a Tales game. Instead of being just bland backdrop B, we have some unique settings and puzzles to do. On top of that, the music is a great phenomenal soundtrack composed by it's him! Oh, it's the man, the myth, the legend, Motoi Sakuraba, the uncontested king of Tales tracks. Every game you see him composing for, he will knock it out of the park, just as he does here. So, when you're loving the soundtrack in these games, you know it was Sakuraba manning the helm. My last thoughts of this game are that it's not the worst. A lot of it's very good or even amazing. The problem lies in the story being a weakness and overall bloat. You deal with that for so much of the game, it really sets it back, which is what keeps it so low on my list. Number 13, Tales of Rebirth, PS2. Yet another game I have a strange relationship with. At the time, and maybe even now, it was only in Japanese with no way to translate. So I played this title with a script on game FAQs the entire way through. That being said, it may be rife with translation errors, but I'm basing this on how I experienced it. Releasing in Japan on December 16, 2004, and 4 years later, it was ported to the PSP, also only Japan. This was very interesting for me to learn, as this game seems perfect to be a PSP title. We have a very colorful cast of characters. Our supporting cast is mostly very fun and interesting. Mao, Eugene, Titri, and Hilda are a very great supporting cast. Only the same could be said of our last two characters. Annie is a racist, and no, I'm not kidding. She's just racist the whole game. That's her character trait. She gets over it, but she's still racist. Oh, right. Our main character, Vague. True to his name, he's very vague. He does one thing, and he does it well. Vague is probably the most bland character in all of Tales games. Like, I don't even know what to say about him here. Our story throughout the game is not bad, just strange. We literally have to fight racism. Not like people's racism, like actual racism. That's right. Racism has a form, motherfucker, and we gotta kill it. How is that not the best premise for a game ever? This world is inhabited by people called Gajima, who are, I don't know, really hot furries? They are the ones who are subject to much racism. There isn't really much to say, it's pretty straightforward. The battle system is the only one I can think of like this. It's a 3-line linear motion battle system. You basically have a straight battle plane like most 2D Tales games, but in here you can jump between the back and foregrounds, making avoiding that 85% screen covering move much more tolerable. It's a fun combat system. The camera can get wonky having to move super far out to see everything. You kind of get lost in all the stuff happening. Just like Destiny, Rebirth is a very Tales-inspired game in both looks and dungeons. It's a fun enough title. The soundtrack, once again from the king himself, is amazing. Tales of Rebirth is, well, an okay game. While some of the concepts are really funny, it doesn't do much out of a comfort zone. Meaning you just get a pretty standard Tales game where you fight racism. Number 12, Tales of Innocence R, PS Vita. Innocence R, just like Hearts R, had a DS counterpart only in Japanese. Meaning, I played the Vita version, which was also only Japanese. However, the Vita version had a patch which I worked really fucking hard to get and play on my PS TV. You? Bruh. So again, the DS version may be better, but I only have experience with the Vita. Innocence R released on the Vita on January 26, 2012. Again, 5 years after the initial DS release. The team behind this title was Namco Bandai Games. Remember that team that absorbed a ton of studios? Unlike Hearts R, however, our cast this time is pretty dang fun. We also have 2 special characters for the Vita release. Everybody in our cast here is fun to follow and watch grow. The only exception is the main character. Unlike Vague, Ruka at least has a personality. He's a shy, timid boy, and at first you feel like something may happen, but for most of the game, he doesn't feel like the main character. At some crucial plot points, he literally just stands in the background while the other characters deal with said problems. He falls off pretty quickly, but everyone else is great. And now I'm going to mention something I've neglected for the better part of this list. Mascots. Most Tales games have a mascot. Some of them do nothing, and some of them do too fucking much. This one, for sure, does too much. The other games had mostly for looks mascots. They didn't affect the plot much, didn't speak. Makoto, though, doesn't shut the fuck up. The whole game, he just interjects for no reason other than to let you know he's there. I actually hate him. The plot is interesting and definitely ramps up partway through the game, keeping you engaged for most of its duration. Its battle system is the direct interaction linear motion battle system. I think it was supposed to utilize the touch aspect of the Vita, which I didn't have. It just meant it played like a 3D Tales game. It was a blast. I even found myself swapping characters a lot of the time, which I don't do lightly. So points for its looks. The dungeons, though, are kind of a mess. Very boring and very maze-like hallway simulator. The soundtrack in this game is pretty banging, and once again, we have Kazuhiro Nakamura to thank for that. This time, it's way less repetitive and does a great job cycling different tunes. There isn't much for me to write about this game, which is not a bad thing. I enjoyed this game a lot, but being a handheld console game meant it wasn't nearly as long as the other titles, and obviously, it had some restrictions, meaning it lacks a lot of what the better titles have. Number 11, Tales of Arise, PC. That's right, the game that released worldwide since we aren't cavemen anymore on September 10th, 2021, and set me on a journey to play every Tales game with it being the conclusion. The team behind it was again Bandai Namco Studios, and is of the making of this video the most current Tales game. I have a lot of feelings towards this title. I have a lot of respect for its smaller scale cast, but that doesn't make them any less boring. Alphen and Shion are some cookie cutter pro tags. They end up being very generic boy and girl protagonists, which isn't bad, it just doesn't accomplish much. Shion can at least have some decent moments over Alphen, but that's about it. Our remaining cast is a smidge better, but they also kind of lack distinguishing features, aside from Kisara's ass. At least this mascot isn't intolerable. The story is massive, the world is just as big, and I'm just not sure it translates to better. There's a lot to see and do, not a crazy amount of substance to it though. The main positives? It's gorgeous, a beautiful looking game. Every art, place, character looks amazing. When I first booted the game after playing every other title, it had me feeling like this was it. This is the future. The music is chilling when it needs to be, and empowering when you want it. Thank you, Sakuraba. This combat doesn't have a defined system like the others, but it's pretty fun. It has a few flaws, like you have to keep spamming overlimits and mystics just for some middling results, like I should see way more damage than this when activating my best moves. The bosses of the game are also bullshit, having some random ultimate that wipes out the party and is barely stoppable. Every boss felt like this huge damage sponge that took at least an hour to fight. I kind of shorthanded the main section here to get to my overall thoughts, which is important for Tales of Arise. Tales of Arise is a great game. I just don't think it's a great Tales game. Arise felt the least like any Tales game I had played, and more like every other modern JRPG out there. It lost the charm most Tales titles have, and replaced them with every generic backdrop, enemy, and boss. Arise may be better than the previous games in terms of overall, but will never take away the pure charm and wonder the next 10 gave us. Number 10, Tales of Phantasia, PS1. Now let's get to the real games. The progenitor of the series we know and love, Tales of Phantasia. It all started here, releasing on the Super Famicom on December 15, 1995, and then releasing over and over and over again. The version we're talking about is the PlayStation version. Having myself played most other versions excluding Narikiri Dungeons for PSP, I can easily say the best is for the PlayStation. I played a fan translation by Absolute Zero and they did an amazing job. I remember playing this in high school and it's still my go-to today. Phantasia being helmed by the first team to make Tales games, Wolf Team, but you may know them by their later name, Namco Tales Studio. You know, the Destiny guys. Phantasia will resonate with you from start to finish. Every character is likable, hell, even lovable. Kless is our classic hero protagonist, and he wears it well. While he does fall to the sidelines a bit during main plot, he always shines when the hero is needed. His best friend Chester is no slouch either, a rash individual but always there for his friends. Mint is our healer, and while quiet, she always steps up to do whatever she believes is right. Arsh is our mage girl longing to explore the world, and of course, our secondary main character, Klaus, or Clarth. He handles most of the plot while Kless shows up to save the day. Every one of these characters is a joy to bond with and watch come together as a party. The story is something that gets somewhat repeated throughout Tales games, but usually with a different spin. From the beginning, you won't want to miss a single thing that happens, and you'll be no less shocked when it concludes. The battle system is also the progenitor of where all Tales combat is conceived, the LIMS system, Linear Motion Battle System. It's very simple and primitive at this time, being on a 2D plane with only the ability to walk back and forth while using arts. The combat doesn't rely on aerial combos, which is a huge plus for the 2D system, being able to stay grounded and have the ability to dash off of potential hazards, which makes it much more playable. My problems with Fantasia's battle system is, well, load times. Want to cast a spell? Better grab a drink. Want to use a summon? Might as well go shopping while it finishes the animation. These are heavily prevalent combat features, so you'll break the flow of combat very often, making it a drag. Also, random encounters. Yeah, you'll be stopped a lot from the encounter rate in this game, which are the few blemishes in an otherwise perfect game. The soundtrack is solid hype battle themes, tear-jerking melodies, and inspiring solos. Thank you, Sakuraba. It keeps you engaged the whole way through. Fantasia is an amazing game. It only struggles with issues stemming from its age. If you want a more in-depth look, I did make a review of this game. I'll link it here. Thank you, Fantasia, for birthing the rest of this amazing series. Number 9. Tales of Exilia, PS3. Dropping in Japan on September 8, 2011, and then in North America, August 6, 2013, we have the esteemed Tales of Exilia. Helmed by Namco Tales Studio and holding a roster of colorful characters, and even having 2 main characters in Jude and Mila. Jude was a pleasant surprise for me going into this game, since he was the first main character in a Tales game I played not wielding a sword. Just some catch these hands type shit. No, I refuse to acknowledge Senel.
Alright!
Let's not forget Mila, who has a mixed sword magic playstyle, giving you the best of everything. I must say, this entire cast really does it for me. I love seeing them interact and overcome many obstacles together. I mean, I named my daughter Elise for fuck's sake. I hope that lets you know how much I care for this team. The story is fantastic. I really enjoyed being a part of the ride. The only issue with the story itself is, at the beginning you pick either Mila or Jude. Depending on who you pick, you miss some massive context to the story very late game, meaning you have to play again, which isn't bad if you enjoyed the game, but myself, I'd rather do it once and then pick it up later on a New Game Plus. It kind of forces another playthrough whether you want it or not, if you pick the person who doesn't give the full context. The World of Exilia is the title where a lot of changes happen. First off, you have gather points. Nothing new to Tales games, but in Exilia, it's more forced to be able to keep up in game, creating more busy work in the long run. Secondly, Exilia is the title that killed memorable and mechanically complex dungeons. They become very point A to point B with X theme in the background. The art direction in the game is very much what you'd expect from this time period. Still feels very much like a Tales game in most scenarios. The combat itself is really fun, probably one of the better ones. Mila can use air combat most of the time, and everyone else has their role in battle they can play perfectly. You can also swap team members on the fly in battle, giving everyone a chance. Also, the mascot for this game is Tipo. He ain't so bad. Not the best, but he's cute.
You're not the boss of her. You're only 3 years older.
Tipo, stop!
Elise,
Yes?
even if it's only 3 years, I'm still older than you.
Scary Leia!
And of course, the soundtrack is a slam dunk, and you know who to thank. Tales of Exilia is a great Tales game, only held back by the few traits it attempts to implement or cut off from previous titles. Number 8. Tales of Destiny 2, PS2. One of the most surprising games I played, Tales of Destiny 2, the real one, not Tales of Eternia. Destiny 2 is the direct sequel to Destiny, releasing on PS2 in Japan on November 28, 2002, and later on PSP. Like Rebirth, I had to play this title with a script. Luckily, there was a combat mod that made all the menus in English. Destiny 2 was made by Wolf Team, and holy hell was this game worth playing even with a script. Our main character is Kyle, son of Stan, a young boy nearly as boneheaded as his father, but hates being bored and will do anything for the sake of adventure. Rayala is the female counterpart to Kyle. She has an extremely complex character and story that you will love to unravel. Our supporting cast is a very dynamic one, also giving us a certain character from the previous game. By far, one of my favorite characters in any Tales game is here as well, Harold. Harold is this scientist character, and I can't talk about her much without spoilers, but she is fantastic. Also, if you know the meme, this is the game Barbados is from. He fucking hates when you use items. And he really does just hit me every time I use an item, huh? The story of this game had me by the balls. I was enamored by it. I just had to know what happened next and how we would prevail. The combat system is the trust and tactical linear motion battle system. It has this bar that expends SP for every attack, and you have to back off when it depletes. You want to swap between all characters in battle while the others recharge. It's on a 2D plane, and is a lot of fun most of the time. The only time I was not having fun was fighting the final boss. Ugh, just thinking about it upsets me. The characters, dungeons, and world are very Tales inspired, and are what I think to be the pinnacle of the Japanese-only PS2 games.
Disabling frame limiter. Running around in circles. Running around at the speed of sound. Got places to go. Have to follow my rainbow. Can't stick around. Have to keep moving on. Guess what lies ahead? Only one way to find out.
It loses points for being only Japanese, but it's still worth it. And of course, the music is perfection. Overall, it was a massive surprise to find this was such a fun and well thought out game compared to the first Destiny. Another huge plus is you don't need the context of the first game to play this. You can just go right in and have a great time. Number 7. Tales of Xillia 2, PS3. Love that 2 direct sequels are right next to each other. Released in Japan November 1st, 2012, and later in North America August 19th, 2014. Xillia 2 was made by Bandai Namco Studios and was another pleasant surprise for me. I absolutely adored this game and personally put it in my top 3. Xillia 2 does what Symphonia Dawn of the New World should have done, and that's make a good game. Xillia 2 holds every playable character from the first, albeit older with only one new addition, and that's self-insert character Ludger. He doesn't talk much, but that's the point. You're supposed to make choices for him throughout the game as your self-insert. This doesn't mean he's just a blank slate. Oh no, see, he loves tomato soup, and he has crippling debt. See, he's just like us. Also, look at this fat kitty. The story in Xillia 2 is pretty wild, keeping you guessing a lot of the time, and when questions get answered, more questions replace them. A few contentious points of the game are, well, the debt system. You must pay off a debt to progress the story. It's a lot like how Xillia 1 forced you to farm, only 10 times worse. Most of the time, you feel like you've been invisible walled from having fun, and are forced to side quest. The other thing is that a lot of what we see is copy-pasted from Xillia 1, and the dungeons are still as bland as they were in that game. The story here is really what carries us to the top, and of course the combat system, the cross-double raid linear motion battle system.
It's not over. We need to finish it off.
Oh my god! Dude, Ludger is the most fucking insane protagonist ever! I don't know what to tell you, man. It's fun. Some of the most fun I've had in a Tales game's combat. Xillia 2 is also marred by the fact you really need to play the first game to understand anything, which brings it down a lot for me considering that baggage. It improves the strengths of the first and also intensifies the weaknesses, leaving it here at number 7. Also, still Sakuraba. Number 6. Tales of Grace's F, PS3. It's just a little shy of cracking top 5, but it's still a great game. Tales of Grace's first released for the fucking Wii in Japan on December 10th, 2009, and almost exactly a year later, ported to the PS3 on December 2nd, 2010, and then in North America, March 13th, 2012. Tales of Grace's stands proud as one of the best Tales games. Our cast holds very complex motives, backstories, and some real tear-jerking moments. Asbel and Hubert are two brothers torn apart by certain circumstances. Sophie's a mysterious child with no known past. Sherry and Richard, all characters who met as children and had fate twist their bonds into something unrecognizable. The cast fight to preserve their friendships against all odds. This is the beginning of some of the deepest relationships between cast members. It all feels so natural, like you're growing up with the cast. I can't commend it enough for what it accomplishes. Now, to contradict myself a bit, it definitely can come off as very stale in the way the story is told, so while you're heavily invested in characters, the story may pick you up and drop you back off occasionally. The combat in the game boasts the style shift linear motion battle system. It's the pinnacle of Tales combat. The game in its entirety may not be number 1, but without a doubt, the combat is. Did he say your mom? Damn, he hit him with the your mom. Damn it, Asbel! Oh my god! It's the perfect blend of fighter and ARPG. Skill is a must, and you are rewarded for being good at the tech. While the dungeons here are far from the worst, this still was a noticeable decline from what we had previously been accustomed to. I also believe this was the last title that had a more unique-looking Tales look to it. The soundtrack is another hit. Honestly, as long as Sakuraba's the composer, I might as well not even mention it. While Tales of Graces scored perfect marks and characters in combat, it still has a lot of work to do in storytelling and overall world building, leaving it just outside of the top 5. Speaking of which, congrats for making it this far. I hope my list hasn't upset you too much. If it hasn't yet, it surely will soon. We're getting into the top 5 Tales games. Only the best of the best can be placed here. So get those Hyogis ready, because it's time for number 5. Number 5, Tales of Symphonia, GameCube. August 29th, 2003, a game was born in Japan. And on July 13th, 2004, that game became the gateway drug into Tales games. That's right, it's finally here. Tales of Symphonia. So many Tales adventures began with this title. The amount of re-releases reflects that. Symphonia was the first taste native English speakers got of Tales, and that puts it in very high regards for anyone who talks about it. Hell, it was my second Tales game, the first being Fantasia. Now, it's about time I explain the teams to you. At the time of this game, we had a split of teams from the original Team Wolf, and while they all fell under the name Namco Tales Studio, there were 2 teams who made these games. One we know well is Team Destiny, responsible for most 2D titles, Destiny 1, 2, Rebirth, Hearts, the DS version, and Graces F. They made one more, but we'll talk about that later. And the other team, Team Symphonia. And boy, was Team Symphonia good at what they do. Symphonia has a whole 9 characters in its playable roster, and it never feels like too much. While some characters are definitely lacking, like Genus and Regal, they still have some pivotal moments and scenes that can draw you in. Symphonia is one of the titles you must experience firsthand, and I mean that. If I talk about the cast, we'll be here for hours. Our story is a bit of a play on Fantasia's story, but more in depth. You could draw so many parallels, but still come up with a massive amount of differences to make Symphonia unique. Symphonia has the multi-line linear motion battle system, which is basically just the very first 3D system. This allows us to finally break that 2D plane and run around the field. It's an early form, so it's slow and kind of clunky, making battles a bit stiff to play. Thankfully, we have fun dungeon design, and what I think is peak Sorcerer's Ring mechanics. This makes for a lot of fun puzzles and unique dungeons to crawl through. My only complaint is it doesn't feel very fluid in terms of movement. One of the biggest issues with Symphonia lies outside of the game itself. It has multiple versions, and a lot are just inferior to the GameCube version, having a bevy of issues. And obviously right now it's hard to gain a physical copy of the game with costs of retro being so high. As far as in-game, there isn't much to say on the bad side. It looks a little cartoony is something I've heard, but I think that really helps it stand apart from most games. The storytelling can get cheesy and phoned in at points, but it's nothing to stop playing for. Sakuraba? Symphonia is just the perfect starting point for Tales games. It holds just about every ingredient to make what I think is exactly what Tales games need now. Number 4, Tales of Berseria, PS4. After years of nothing and one of the worst games Tales can speak of, came one of the absolute best. Berseria devoured the previous game in Japan on August 18, 2016, and in North America on January 24, 2017. Tales of Berseria was a breath of fresh air after getting Zestiria. Berseria went out of its way to do something different, and it succeeded. No more goody two-shoes hero, no more we gotta save the world, yet. Just Velvet and her desire for revenge.
What I would do to be in the position Rokuro was just in.
Berseria takes a bold, dark approach we've never seen before and pulls it off well. Our team is a roster of off-the-beaten-path characters who are, well, just a bunch of bad guys. And they're all so great. Most of the team doesn't care about saving the world, just their own desires. And as they grow, they become more human. It's hilarious to see the interactions between the only goody two-shoes of the party, Eleanor, and the rest of the crew who literally just kill people. The shining gem of the cast is Magilu, who is like Harold, another one of my favorites. This whole cast is amazing, and it's astounding to see what they pull off. The story keeps you engaged the whole way through, and has you yourself debating what exactly is right and wrong, feeling just as angry or confused as Velvet does. The combat is, well, I don't know how to describe it, but it's metal as hell. The Liberation linear motion battle system. You eat people, dude. Depending on what you devour as Velvet can grant different boons, and the other characters also have their own special moves affecting their combat. While it's not as good as Grace's combat, it comes really goddamn close, with every move feeling so powerful and worth taking the effort to pull off. It's another game I was constantly switching to different characters. Its weak sides are the same as the current gen counterparts, with a bland world and boring dungeons, but the battles keep you engaged fully while exploring. Even as a newer game, it still somehow holds a unique style that sets it apart from everything else on the PS4. Also, as a newer game, it has bloat and the huge amount of items you need to go through, but you can easily ignore this and still be fine. Overall, Berseria sets out and succeeds in accomplishing a lot of things current JRPGs just can't, with its fantastic storytelling, colorful characters, and its very sound combat. Finally, we've reached the top 3, the absolute best Tales has to offer, so let's get into it. Number 3, Tales of Eternia, PSP. Also known as Tales of Destiny 2 to us foolish Americans, Tales of Eternia, the pinnacle of 2D Tales games, and what this gamer believes is Team Destiny's greatest work. First releasing in Japan on November 30th, 2000, and later in North America on September 18th, 2001, we received the gift of Tales of Eternia, the birthplace of my favorite channel meme.
I Oogie! Ice Needle!
This game was yet another surprise on my Tales journey. I went into this game thinking it would be just like Destiny DX, but boy was I wrong. Eternia has a playable cast of 6 characters, making the most of what we have. Reed, our main character, doesn't want to be the hero, he's just constantly dragged along and does what he thinks is right. Farah's the childhood friend of Reed, and the one constantly taking him places he does not want to go. Merity as well. She's Merity. Balba. Keel is our frail mage friend, and, well, you get the point. While we have had good character interaction before, we now have perfect cohesion. You mean my effort was for nothing? Well, thanks for trying. The entire party meshes so well together. It's hilarious to watch Reed be dragged to do what he doesn't want to do, while Keel scolds Merity for being so naive. This cast is so perfectly in sync with each other that it truly feels like what a traveling party saving the world would be like. You don't expect it from starting in the boonies, but soon you're on a bombastic adventure, facing things you've never dreamed of, and standing up to whatever dares cross your path. The combat system is the aggressive linear motion battle system, and it is pure perfection of 2D combat. You're on a single plane yet again, but this game lets you play. No more inability to dodge, no more waiting for spells to cast, just pure combat. If Graces holds the title of Best 3D Combat, then Eternia is uncontested in terms of 2D.
He's still! Oh my god, the bitch! Let's go! Let's go! Finish him! Oh my god!
Never before has a mystic felt so good. The sprite work is pure bliss. Every character, spell, and mystic will leave you craving more things to do. The dungeons are nearly peak Tales dungeons, with some very unique and absolutely fun puzzles. If you're waiting for something bad to be said, I don't have it, my friends. Tales of Eternia is only held back by its age, and the fact the next 2 games are just a little better. Go play Tales of Eternia, thank me later. Number 2, Tales of Vesperia, PC. The final game made by Team Symphonia and one of the best. Vesperia wolf-striked into our hearts in Japan August 7th, 2008, and North America on August 26, 2008. It would be a year before we saw it on PS3, and 10 more till the definitive edition, which came on January 11th, 2019. Tales of Vesperia is just the pinnacle of everything there is to love about Tales as a whole. Fantastic characters, perfect interaction between them, a story that takes us on a wild ride, and of course, Sakuraba. Our roster consists of 9 characters, and one of them is the mascot. Unlike Tipo, who is more of a background fighter, Rapide is straight up his own unit. Yuri, our main character, is no hero. In fact, he's more an anti-hero, making his methods sketchy at best. You never expect what his next move will be. Estelle, the princess, is the light to Yuri's darkness, and they balance each other well. Carol is a young adventurer trying to make a name for himself and constantly falling over while trying.
Oh my
God.
We won! Now
I
the
know!
war is safe as well.
That's how I feel right now!
Rita says, fuck your long spell casting, I'm gonna cast right now, damn it. Raven is just oozing sex appeal, and Judith is also oozing sex appeal. Oh, and Patty the pirate. Need I say more? No character listed as one-dimensional in any way. They are all such multifaceted characters with much more than meets the eye. While Eternia's cast mesh perfectly together from RIP, we get to see this crew truly blossom as a unit over time. Politics, money, power, all will fall before the will of the people as Yuri and company set out to right the wrongs of humanity. The combat system is, oh god, the evolved flex range linear motion battle system. I don't know what that means, but look at this. Man, look at that!
Let's finish this. The brilliant blade of cold steel. Rend the infinite darkness. And crush my enemies to nothing. Savage Wolf Fury! Yeah, now that's a win.
That was like all his fucking hell. Does it look good? Well, guess what? It feels good. The dungeons? Fun. The world? Enchanting. The music? Sakuraba. Vesperia truly seems to be the next evolution of Symphonia, as it strikes perfect marks all across the board. Vesperia is very nearly a perfect Tales game, but there can only be one best, and that is... Number 1, Tales of Wallbreaker, Hi Ogi! Number 1, Tales of the Abyss, PS2. The middle child of Team Symphonia, Tales of the Abyss, first released in Japan on December 15, 2005, and later in North America on October 10, 2006. It also later released on the 3DS of all things. And oh hey, this is that game that was being made at the same time as Legendia. Abyss is the hallmark of Tales games. It nearly perfects every single facet of the series. The characters go through arcs and changes like you would never believe, with the main character Luke having the best character development of any game I've ever played hands down. Now, I've already talked up character interaction for other games, but Abyss decimates those standards with some of the most worthwhile party dynamics ever put to video game. You'll never guess what's happening next, or who does what as you experience this title. There's a reason Abyss usually dominates the popularity polls for Tales games. Luke is our arrogant rich kid main character who gets more in tune with himself as the game progresses, and at heart wants to do what's best. Tyr is Luke's opposite in terms of wisdom and worldly experience. She's cold and calculating. Colonel Jade Curtis, a man with a dark past but a very bright personality. Guy Cecil, guardian and best friend of Luke. Annis Tatlin, guardian of the Phone Master determined to wipe her family's debt. And Natalia, princess of Kimlaska, always doing what's best for her country, even if it means getting her own hands dirty. And probably marrying her own cousin. The world of Abyss itself is rife with storytelling about the land, no matter where you are or who you speak to. It's one of the few games I left no stone unturned as I learned about every facet of this land's history. The story itself goes to some amazing places in terms of what happens, when, and how you evolve as you progress, leaving you in awe of everything the story feeds you. In terms of art, it is by and far the most unique looking Tales game and still has unique dungeons with puzzles you must solve to progress. The combat uses the range linear motion battle system, creating some of the most fun gameplay of all Tales games. Your team can cast spells that leave an area of effect of that element, and using certain arts in said field augment your abilities for some powerful arts. The movement feels very fluid and every character can give what you want. Crave that fast movement? Time to switch to Guy. Want a lot of arts and to be more tanky? Luke's your boy. Every move you make feels so direct and fulfilling. This is one of the games you should play at least once in your life, and that's why Tales of the Abyss is the number 1 Tales game. Well, what did you think? Do you agree with my placements or do you disagree? My personal list looks a lot different from this one. Put a good amount of effort into trying to differentiate and place them as best as I could, and hey, if this video does well enough, maybe I can pick up my old review style videos and do the rest of them more in depth. If that's something you'd like to see, drop a like or subscribe to help further my content. Thanks so much for watching all the way through. I hope tonight Sakuraba-san blesses you with a melody that gets you a full and perfect rest. Thanks again, everyone, and remember, stay cozy.